Hey, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make our rustic holiday tree. This coordinates well with our rustic farmhouse snowman and our gnome with the same stitch. And I've also weighted and stuffed these trees as well. So I have some other tree patterns, but what I really love about this pattern is that it has the stuffing option instead of using cones. I've had lots of requests to be able to stuff my trees, so I think you're really going to enjoy this pattern. I've used Brava Tweed worsted weight yarn, but I am tripling this yarn similar to the gnome, if you've watched that tutorial, to make it nice and thick and turn it basically into a super bulky yarn. So if you wanted to use super bulky yarn instead, where you're not having to triple it, I suggest Wool Ease Thick and Quick, and you can get the beautiful tweeds in this yarn. So that would be another option if you prefer to not be tripling and working with all those strands. But this is an inexpensive way to turn worsted weight yarn into super bulky. So if you want to use yarn in your stash, if you're not able to afford the super bulky yarn, I know it can sometimes tend to be pricey. So I thought this would be a good alternative for people to be able to use their stash, or if you really love Brava Tweed, it is a great option and I've used it in a lot of my patterns. So you want a little weighted bag, and that gives your tree some stability, especially with the stuffing with these trees. I find that really helps to hold it so it doesn't topple over. So a little weighted bag, you can use whatever you want. You could use sand, you could use beads. Check out your dollar store. There's usually lots of options. And I ordered these little bags I've talked about in my other videos. You can get 100 of them for maybe around $20, but I've had lots of people in the group commenting of their ideas, even just using the Ziploc baggies. Really anything, pantyhose, anything that you can just secure nice inside your tree. So you'll need some polyester fill as well, and cardboard, and I'll show you in the tutorial how we're going to use that cardboard. And you'll need a stitch marker because we are going to work in a continuous round, so there is no seam for these trees. The pattern does have 3 sizes. We're going to work on the smaller size. It's going to use a ball. You can get the medium-sized tree from 1 ball of yarn as well, as long as you have a nice tight tension. I did make a second tree, and I was a little looser with my tension and ran out almost just shy, so I was able to still finish it off. But you can definitely get 1 tree out of 1 ball, providing you have a good tight tension. And then we have the larger tree as well, and it will need an additional ball. So you'll need 2 balls for that larger size. But we're going to work on the smaller size today, and it's going to work up super quick. So we're going to do that together. I'll be using an 8mm hook for this pattern, but definitely size down. If you're finding there's too much gapping with your stitches, you could try a 7mm or even a 6.5. The struggle is the smaller the hook you go, it can be tough to get all 3 strands. So I'm going with the 8. I'm going to keep my tension nice and tight as I'm working with it. And it should work out well to get those stitches nice and tight. So I love this little trick for making super bulky yarn from worsted. So we're going to go into an S shape. Basically, you want to get your 3 strands lined up. Make it as big as you can go here. Okay, because we're going to hold 3 strands together. So you want to get 3 just like this. And then what you're going to see is at the end, you're going to have this loop. All you're going to do is keep pulling the yarn through the loop. So if you want to just keep pulling a whole whack of yarn, it's going to give you lots to work with. I know it may seem a little tedious, but it's just a simple trick that you can do so that you can use the worsted weight. So I'm willing to do the little bit extra work just so I can use a worsted weight and get it nice and thick and chunky, so it's going to work up really fast. So now what we're going to do is make a magic ring. this tree is going to be worked from the bottom up. So we're starting at the bottom so we can get that nice base and then working all the way up, decreasing as we go. Now, for instance, if you love this pattern and you wanted to put it over a cone, you could just literally reverse the pattern and go from the top down and not have a base. But because I already have some trees done that way, I think it's fun to have something unique and a little different. So let's go ahead and make that magic ring. Wrap the yarn around your index finger 3 times. Take your hook, sliding it through. And you can see this is going to be chunky, like we've got the 3 strands together. So pull that through. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to work 10 half double crochet in the ring. So once you get all the way around and you have your 10 stitches, it's always much easier if we just push all of the work out of the way. Just squish it out and then take your tail, start pulling it in. Okay, only some of the loops are going to pull in. I know it's a little tricky when you're working with so many strands. So get that pulled in. Then the loops that we're pulling in, you're going to give them all a tug. When you tug them, they're going to pull the loops that didn't pull in tight, and then you just go back to the tail and pull it. Okay, and then you're going to have a nice tight circle for the bottom. Now I'm going to join this section, this bottom section. It's once we get into going up the tree that we'll worry about working in that round. So sometimes that first stitch gets squished, so I like to double check and count back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it is this stitch right here that we're joining to. I'm going to chain 1, and now we're going to work 2 half double crochet in every stitch around. So we're going from 10 stitches to 20 stitches. So keep adding 2 to every stitch. Because I pulled off so much yarn, you can see I still have yarn to work with. But as soon as we get to that, the end, we just keep pulling through the loop once we get to it. So I'm going to continue this around and then I'm going to meet you up when I finish this round. Get all the way around, slip stitch to join. You can always double check your stitch count, make sure you're on track. Chain 1, and then this round we're going to work a half double crochet in the first stitch and then 2 in the next. Okay, and you can see here we're coming to the end. Here's that loop, and all you do is grab your yarn again and just keep pulling. And like I say, you can just go, I'm pulling from the center of the ball so it comes out nice and easy, and I'll just pull a whole bunch out just so I'm not doing this constantly. Just get myself a good chunk again of yarn. Okay, so 1 in the next stitch and then 2 in the next. One, and then 2. So we're increasing to 30 stitches, and this will be as much as what we're going to increase for the small tree. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. I'm going to slip stitch to join. And what we're going to do at this point is we're going to trace our base. So this is going to be the base of the tree, and I want to trace that on cardboard because I want a nice piece. I'm going to get rid of this tail. Just a little bit back in the opposite direction. We've crocheted over it when we did that foundation round. So let's give this a trim. Get that out of the way. You can use a pencil, pen, really whatever you have. And we're just going to go and trace the size, and then we're going to cut out this cardboard. Okay, so get a good pair of scissors, and then we're just going to cut this out. This is going to be a nice base for our tree. And I just saved some boxes that I have stuff coming. I used these for boxes for my blocking my stockings, and now I'm using this for the base of the tree. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this off camera. Okay, so I have that cut out, and you can see this is going to really help give it a nice edge around the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to chain one. We're going to work single crochets through the back loop now of every stitch around. So this is going to be now shaping that base and setting us up now to start working this nice ribbed stitch working around our tree. So we're just doing one single crochet through the back loop around. So we're at a 30 stitch count. Okay, so we're going to need our stitch marker now. I've worked all the way around. And I'm going to work through the back loop only. I'm going to slip stitch in the first one. This is going to count as my first stitch. And I'm going to slip stitch also in the next. It's just going to make that transition not quite as noticeable. And then single crochet in the back loop only. So now we're going to start into some decreases. So what we're going to do is we need to split. We need to do two decreases every other round. So I'm going to work a total of 13 starting from that first slip stitch. So I'm going to go across 13 and then I'll meet you up again. So now we're going to decrease across the next two. So working through the back loop, go through, pulling up a loop, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop. You now have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, pulling through all 3. Now you're going to work another 13 single crochets in the back loop. So you should have 2 stitches remaining. And then you're going to decrease those last 2 as well. So we're reducing to 28 stitches. So you're just going through, pulling up another loop. You have 3 on your hook, pull through. Okay, and now we're going to single crochet through the back loop. I'm going to get 2 here, and then I'll put my marker back at the first stitch. This round we're just doing 1 in every stitch, so we're going around 28, basically going back around until we get to the marker. Looks like I made a little mess up. This is where working with the 3 strands can sometimes be a little tedious. I'm going to pull that back and fix that because I don't like how that's looking. So I'm going to go pull that back, but this round you're just going to work all the way around in 1 stitch. So I'll meet you back up at the end of that round. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. Let's start it with our first stitch here. Get our stitch marker. So every time we do a decrease round, we'll be working 1 less stitch from the previous decrease round before the decrease. So what that means is the last time we worked 13 and then we decreased the 14th and 15th stitch together. So this time we'll work 12 and we'll decrease the 13th and 14th stitch together. And that's what we're going to continue to do, to decrease every other row until we basically get down to 6 stitches. So let's work through this. We're going to work 12. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 12 single crochet through the back loop. Okay, so I've worked across 12 and now I'll decrease stitch 13 and 14 together. And then we'll do another 12 and decrease 13 and 14 together, or just go till you know you've got 2 stitches remaining and then decrease those. As long as you're on track with your stitch count, that's fine. If you don't want to keep counting, you can just go until you get to those last 2 stitches. Okay, so then we'll be reduced to 26 stitches, and then we'll do a round with just 26 stitches. Okay, and then we'll do another decrease again. And all this, keeping in mind, we want to keep those stitches nice and tight. If they're looking too gappy, then you want to go down to a smaller hook. So I'm decreasing those last 2 now. Okay, and then this is looking small compared to this, but this is going to stretch it out. I want to go a little bit farther before I start adding this and my weighted bag and stuffing. I'm going to go a little bit farther into the pattern. So this round now, I'm just going to work 1 in every stitch around, and it should be 26 that we're working. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. Maybe we better, before we go too far, try and get this inside here. I know it's going to seem, you can always trim it down, but I find it will stretch out the bottom. You want to get it fit, stretched over the bottom there. Make sure it's even. And then as we go, this is a little bit too soon for this, but we'll add the bag in and then start stuffing it. But it might be a good idea before we decrease too much to get that stuck in there. So my next round, I'm not going to go through every decrease round with you. I just want you to understand how it's working. So the last decrease round, we did 12 stitches and then we decreased the 13th and 14th stitch. Now we're going to work 11 stitches and decrease the 12th and 13th stitch, because 13 stitches is half. We're at 26 stitches now. 13 stitches is half. So we need to decrease 12 and 13 together. So let's do that now. And this is the way the pattern's going to keep going. So we've got 1, we'll put the marker in here, and I'm going to work across 11. Okay, so now I've worked across 11, so I'm going to decrease stitch 12 and 13, and then I'm going to work across another 11 and and decrease the last 2 stitches together. And this does seem like, obviously this is looking like this is really stretched out, but as you stuff your tree, you want it stretched out at that bottom section like this. So we've now decreased to 24 stitches, and the next round, I'm just going to work 1 in every stitch. Okay, so I've worked around. We're going to go to our next decrease round, which is going to be 1 in the next 10, and then a decrease. And the reason we do 2 decreases and then a non-decrease round is because if you decrease every round, your tree will kind of go a little bit wonky. When I was experimenting by doing the 2 offset like this, it does keep your tree looking a little bit better. So there's 2. And then I'm going to decrease across the 11th and 12th stitch. I'm going to continue around decreasing the last 2. Okay, so the next round is just going to be 1 in every stitch, but I feel like it's getting tall enough now that we could probably add in our bag. And then what you're going to do is you're going to keep stuffing this as you go. So my bag right now is filling out the base of the tree really well. It might not need much stuffing around. It all depends how much weight you actually add to that. So I'm not going to add any stuffing yet, but as you get working this up, you do really want to get this stuffing as you go to get the stuffing down and try to get your best tree shape. Sometimes my trees get a little, like if you've got little ones that are grabbing them and twisting, they can kind of make your tree look a little wonky. So if you get a good amount of stuffing it as you go, it's just going to keep it in its shape a little bit more. So this round now, I'm going to work 1 in every stitch, and then I am just going to keep decreasing the tree in this manner. So we're just going to keep reducing 1 stitch before the decrease, do that decrease round that decreases it by 2 stitches, and then do 1 where you're not decreasing. And we're just going to keep doing this until we get 6 stitches. So I'm going to get stuffing it now at this point, and I'm just going to keep working it and reducing my stitch count, stuffing as I go, really focusing on making sure it has a nice shape as I work the pattern. And once I get it reduced down to the 6 stitches, we're gonna meet back up again. But you can see how quick and easy it's gonna come together. Okay, so I've almost completed it. This is how it's looking. It's nice and firm as I've been stuffing as I've gone with it, keeping my stitches nice and tight, and I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches. So this is going to be my final decrease. So there's 1, 2, And then we're going to decrease 3 and 4. It's really tight at this point. Okay, so I've reduced to 6 stitches. Now you want to make sure that you finish getting it stuffed right up to the tip. And I'm going to work around for my final round 1 in every stitch for a total of 6 stitches. Okay, and then I'm fastening off. Once I get around, I need to add still a little bit more stuffing in there. Now what we're going to do is take our yarn needle. Make sure you have one for bulky yarn. It makes it so much easier, especially when you've got 3 strands like this. And then I am going to weave through the front loop of every stitch around. And then you're just going to pull it tight. Okay, and I'm just going to weave in this tail. So now I'm just weighing what I have left in yarn, just so you have an idea of how much I've used. So, whoops, it changed it once I just shifted it, but I had 33 grams left. So what I like to do is give an estimate. So there's 100 grams on a ball. So I've used about 67, and if you want to figure out how many yards, so there's 218 per 100. So if I multiply my grams by 2.18, it's going to give me the yardage that I've used. And then I always like to round up. So I've used about 146 yards, so we'll say about 150 yards you would need to triple up the yarn and make the small tree. So now embellishments can always be fun. You could always add some twine. You can, to make your twine bows a little bit bigger, you can always do 3 or 4 even, really however many you want. If you wanted to have a similar look to the snowman, just go with 3. And you could add to the top of your tree if you wanted to give it that sort of that little rustic touch. You could add ribbon, you could add a little star, really anything that you want to decorate. And also you could use those little lights that are battery powered, and you could wrap it around the tree if you wanted to illuminate it for Christmas. So really whatever you want, but these trees can stay up all season. If they're just plain like this, just adding to your winter decor. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. Make sure to check the description box below the video for all of the links. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.